I'm sitting here at my desk, staring at my phone, and I can still see his face in my mind. Drenched. Absolutely soaking wet. Hair plastered to his forehead, water dripping down his nose, his shirt clinging to his shoulders. And he was smiling. Actually, smiling at me. That was the moment I knew. That was the moment everything changed. But let me back up, because this story doesn't start with rain. It starts 3 months earlier, in the most mundane place imaginable, a conference room at work. Grey walls, fluorescent lights, terrible coffee, and the kind of chairs that make your back ache after 20 minutes. I work in marketing for a tech startup, and we were hiring someone new for the creative team. I was part of the interview panel, which basically meant I had to sit through back-to-back meetings with candidates and pretend I cared about their portfolio presentations. Then Cassian walked in. I need you to understand something. I'm not someone who believes in love at first sight. I'm practical, analytical. I make pros and cons lists before buying a coffee maker. But when he walked into that conference room, something in my chest did this weird flutter thing that I'd only read about in novels I pretended not to enjoy. He wasn't conventionally gorgeous or anything. I mean, he was attractive, sure. Tall, lean build, dark hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it too many times that morning. But it was more than that. It was the way he carried himself. Confident but not arrogant. The way his eyes lit up when he started talking about design theory. The way he used his hands when he explained his creative process, like he was sculpting his words in the air. And his voice. God, his voice. Warm and steady, with this slight rasp that made everything he said sound intimate, even when he was discussing brand strategy. I barely contributed to the interview. My colleague, Sarah, asked most of the questions while I sat there, nodding occasionally, trying to look professional while my brain was doing somersaults. At one point, Cassian looked directly at me and asked what I thought about incorporating user-generated content into campaigns, and I swear I forgot how to form sentences. I managed to stammer out something coherent, but Sarah gave me this weird look afterward. He got the job. Of course he got the job. He was brilliant. His first day, I told myself I was going to be normal, professional. We were colleagues, nothing more. I had a rule about workplace relationships anyway. Too messy, too complicated. I'd seen it blow up in people's faces before. That lasted about 3 hours. We ended up in the break room at the same time, both reaching for the coffee pot. Our hands brushed. It was nothing, barely a second of contact. But I felt it everywhere. He pulled back, laughed, gestured for me to go first. I'm Marcus, by the way, I said like an idiot, even though he definitely heard my name during the interview. I know, he said, and there was something in his smile that made my stomach flip. We started talking, just small talk at first. How he was settling in, where he'd moved from, the usual new job stuff. But then it shifted. He mentioned a gallery opening he'd gone to over the weekend, and I mentioned that I loved art museums, but never went anymore because none of my friends were interested. He said we should go together sometime. Casual. Friendly. Except the way he looked at me when he said it didn't feel casual at all. I spent the rest of the day analyzing that interaction. Was he being friendly? Was he flirting? Was I reading into things because I wanted them to mean something? I drove myself crazy. The next few weeks were torture. We'd run into each other constantly. The break room, the elevator, meetings. We'd always end up talking. And every conversation felt charged with something unspoken. He'd lean against the counter while we talked, arms crossed, head tilted slightly, giving me his complete attention like nothing else in the world mattered. I'd catch myself staring at his mouth while he talked, then force my eyes back up, hoping he hadn't noticed. Sometimes I thought I saw something in the way he looked at me. a lingering glance, a smile that lasted a beat too long. But I couldn't be sure, and I was terrified of being wrong, of making things awkward, of ruining whatever this friendship was becoming. Sarah cornered me one day after a meeting. "So," she said, drawing out the word, "you and Cassian seem friendly." I tried to play it cool, shrugged, said he was nice. She raised an eyebrow. "Marcus, I've known you for 3 years. I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at him." I felt my face heat up. "I don't know what you're talking about." She just laughed. "Sure you don't. For what it's worth, I think he looks at you the same way." That comment lived in my head rent-free for days. Did he? Could he? I started paying closer attention, looking for signs. The way he'd find excuses to stop by my desk. How he'd save a seat for me in meetings. The time he brought me coffee without being asked. And it was exactly how I liked it, even though I'd never told him. Then, one Friday, he knocked on my cubicle wall around 6. Most people had already left for the weekend. "Hey," he said, "a bunch of us are grabbing drinks at that bar down the street. You should come." A bunch of us. Casual. Group thing. Safe. "Yeah, sure," I said, trying not to sound too eager. Except when I got to the bar, it was just him. He was sitting at a corner table, 2 beers already ordered. He looked up when I walked in, and his whole face brightened. "Oh, good. You came." "Yeah, everyone else bailed, but I was already here, so." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. I should have left. Should have made an excuse. But I sat down. We talked for 4 hours. 4 hours that felt like 40 minutes. We talked about everything. Work? Sure. But also our families, our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. He told me about growing up in a small town where he never quite fit in. About coming out to his parents when he was 19. About moving to the city to find himself. I told him about my own journey. The years I spent pretending to be someone I wasn't. The relief and terror of finally being honest. There was this moment, probably 2 hours in, when our conversation hit a lull. Not an awkward silence, but a comfortable one. We were both just sitting there, smiling at each other like idiots, and I thought, this is it. This is when I should say something. Tell him how I feel. But fear grabbed my throat and I couldn't get the words out. He broke the silence first. "I'm really glad we did this," he said quietly. "Me too," I managed. "We should do it again sometime," he said. And the way he looked at me, I was almost certain he meant it as more than friendship. "Definitely," I said. We started hanging out regularly after that. Movies, museums, dinners. Always just the 2 of us. We'd text constantly. Good morning messages, random thoughts throughout the day. Good night texts that sometimes turned into hour-long conversations. My friends started commenting on how much time I spent on my phone, smiling at the screen. But I still hadn't told him. Hadn't made a move. Every time I worked up the courage, doubt would creep in. What if I was wrong? What if he just wanted to be friends? What if I ruined everything? Then came the restaurant. It was a Wednesday, middle of November. We'd been planning this dinner for a week. There was this new Italian place that had just opened, and Cassian had been talking about it non-stop. He'd made reservations for 7. I was supposed to leave work at 6, giving myself plenty of time to get there. Except at 5:30, my boss dropped a crisis in my lap. A client emergency, everything on fire, all hands on deck. I tried to handle it quickly, kept glancing at the clock. 6 came and went. 6:15, 6:30. I texted Cassian. "So sorry, stuck at work, might be a little late." He responded immediately. "No worries, take your time." 6:45. 7. 7:15. The crisis wasn't resolving. My phone kept buzzing. I couldn't look at it. Couldn't step away. 7:30. 7:45. Finally. At 8, we got things under control. I grabbed my coat and ran. It was pouring. Not just raining, but that heavy, relentless kind of rain that soaks you in seconds. I didn't have an umbrella. I tried to get a cab, but every single one was taken. I pulled out my phone to call a rideshare, and my hands were shaking. Not from the cold, from guilt, from the sick feeling in my stomach. I had 17 unread messages from Cassian. The first few were understanding. No rush. These things happen. Then they got more concerned. Hey, is everything okay? Marcus, you're kind of worrying me. If you can't make it, just let me know. The last one, sent 10 minutes ago. I'm still here. I'm still here. At 8 o'clock. An hour after our reservation. He was still there. The rideshare took forever. Traffic was a nightmare because of the rain. I sat in the back seat, watching the minutes tick by, feeling worse and worse. 8:15, 8:20, 8:30. I tried calling him. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. We finally pulled up to the restaurant at 8:45. Nearly 2 hours late. I threw money at the driver and ran inside, dripping everywhere. The hostess looked at me with pity. Can I help you? I have a reservation. Well, I had a reservation. For 7. Under Cassian. She checked her computer, lips pressed together. I'm sorry, sir, but we gave that table away at 7:30. Your party left about 15 minutes ago. My heart dropped into my stomach. He'd left. Of course he'd left. I'd stood him up, kept him waiting for almost 2 hours, and he'd finally given up. I couldn't blame him. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, trying to figure out what to say, how to apologize. Then the hostess said, Actually, I think he might still be outside. He was waiting out front for a while. I didn't even thank her. I just turned and ran back outside. And there he was, standing under the small awning by the restaurant entrance, arms wrapped around himself, completely soaked. His nice button-down shirt was plastered to his body, his hair dripping. His dress shoes probably ruined. He was staring down the street like he was still watching for me. Cassian, I called out. He turned, and when he saw me, his whole face transformed. Relief, joy, something else I couldn't name. He smiled, actually smiled. Marcus, oh my God, I was so worried. I walked toward him, my own clothes getting even more soaked, rain running down my face. You waited, I said stupidly. You've been standing out here in the rain. Well, yeah, he said like it was obvious. I knew you'd come. You said you were stuck at work. So I knew you'd come when you could. But I'm almost 2 hours late. The restaurant gave away our table. You're soaking wet. You should have just gone home. He took a step closer. We were maybe 2 feet apart now. Rain was pouring down on both of us, but neither of us moved to find better shelter. Marcus, he said softly, I wasn't going to leave without seeing you. Something in my chest cracked open. Why? I asked, even though part of me knew. Part of me had known for weeks. Because, he said, and he took another step closer, close enough that I could see the water droplets on his eyelashes. Because I look forward to seeing you more than anything else in my day. Every day. Because I think about you constantly. Because when something good happens, you're the first person I want to tell. Because He stopped, took a breath. Because I have feelings for you. Real feelings. And I've been trying to figure out if you feel the same way. And I thought maybe you did. But I wasn't sure. and I didn't want to ruin our friendship if I was wrong. But standing here right now, soaking wet and freezing, waiting for you, I realized I don't care anymore. I don't care if it's risky. I needed to tell you. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only stare at him, this incredible man who'd waited in the rain for me, who was looking at me like I was something precious. Say something, he said, and I heard the vulnerability in his voice. Please say something, because I'm kind of dying here. I'm in love with you, I blurted out. Not the eloquent confession I'd imagined, just the truth, raw and honest. I've been in love with you for months. Since the day you walked into that interview, probably. I've been terrified to tell you. Terrified of ruining things. But yes, Cassian, I feel the same way. More than the same way. His smile was blinding. Yeah? Yeah, I said, and I was smiling too. Couldn't stop smiling even though we were both standing in a downpour like idiots. Can I kiss you? He asked. God, yes. He closed the distance between us, his hands coming up to cut my face, and then his lips were on mine and nothing else mattered. Not the rain, not the ruined dinner reservation, not the fact that we were making out on a public sidewalk. Just him. Just this, just the feeling of finally being honest. When we pulled apart, we were both breathless. We should probably get out of this rain, he said, laughing. Probably, I agreed, but neither of us moved. For the record, he said, you're worth waiting for. Rain or no rain. I kissed him again because I couldn't help myself. We ended up going back to my apartment, both of us dripping water everywhere. I gave him dry clothes, made us hot tea, and we curled up on my couch under a blanket. I'm really sorry about tonight, I said. About being so late. About making you wait. He shook his head. Don't be. I mean, yes. Maybe text me next time a crisis happens so I'm not worried you got hit by a bus. But Marcus, I would have waited all night if I had to. That's how much you mean to me. I still can't believe you just stood there in the rain. Where else was I going to go? He said simply. I wanted to see you. We talked for hours that night, curled up together, everything finally out in the open. We talked about how we'd both been dancing around our feelings, both too scared to make the first move. He told me about all the times he'd almost said something. The night at the bar when he'd wanted to reach across the table and take my hand. The time we went to the art museum and stood in front of a painting for 20 minutes, shoulders touching, and he'd wanted to kiss me right there. All the moments I'd been agonizing over, wondering if I was imagining things. He'd been feeling the same way. We're both idiots, I said. Complete idiots, he agreed, grinning. But we're idiots together now. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of the best relationship I've ever had. 6 months of learning each other, of building something real and solid and beautiful. It hasn't all been easy. We had to navigate the workplace relationship thing, which meant uncomfortable conversations with HR and some gossip from co-workers. We've had arguments, misunderstandings, moments of frustration, but we've worked through all of it. Because here's what I've learned. Love isn't just the big dramatic moments. It's not just standing in the rain or grand confessions. It's all the small things. It's Cassian bringing me coffee in the morning, made exactly how I like it. It's the way he leaves little notes in my lunch when he knows I have a stressful day ahead. It's how we've learned to communicate, to be honest even when it's hard, to choose each other every single day. It's also the way he looks at me when he thinks I'm not paying attention, the way he reaches for my hand when we're walking, the way he says my name, like it's his favorite word, the way we fit together on the couch, his head on my shoulder, my fingers running through his hair while we watch movies neither of us are really paying attention to. Last week, we went back to that Italian restaurant. Same place, same time, 7 o'clock on a Wednesday. This time I made sure nothing would make me late. We sat across from each other at a small corner table, candles flickering between us, and I looked at him in the soft light and felt overwhelmingly grateful. "What?" he asked, noticing my stare. "Nothing," I said, "just thinking about how lucky I am." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm the lucky one. You're worth waiting for. Remember." "Even in the rain?" I asked. "Especially in the rain," he said. "And here's the thing I want you to understand. If you're listening to this, and you're scared like I was, if you're holding back your feelings because you're afraid of rejection, afraid of ruining a friendship, afraid of being vulnerable, I get it. Fear is powerful, but regret is worse. So much worse. I think about what would have happened if Cassian hadn't been brave that night, if he'd gone home instead of waiting, if he'd kept his feelings hidden, if we'd both just continued dancing around the truth. I would have missed out on the most important relationship of my life, on morning coffees and late-night conversations, and the feeling of being completely, utterly known by another person. Being vulnerable is terrifying. Putting your heart on the line, risking rejection, admitting you have feelings. It goes against every self-protective instinct we have. But sometimes, the scariest thing is also the most worthwhile thing. Cassian took a chance on me. He stood in the rain and waited, and then told me the truth, even though he didn't know how I'd respond. And that courage, that willingness to be vulnerable, changed both of our lives. So if you're sitting on feelings for someone, if you're wondering whether to take that leap, here's my advice. Take it. Be honest. Be brave. Yes, they might not feel the same way. Yes, it might be awkward. Yes, you might get hurt. But you might also find something incredible. You might find the person who waits for you in the rain, who sees you completely and loves you anyway, who makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary just by being there. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's worth it. Cassian and I are talking about moving in together. It's soon, maybe too soon, by conventional standards, but it feels right. We've already started looking at apartments, places with enough room for both of our stuff, with good light for his design work, with a kitchen big enough for us to cook together on weekends. My mom asked me the other day if I was happy. Really happy. And I realized I am. For the first time in my life, I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. I'm not hiding parts of myself or holding back my feelings. I'm just me, fully and completely, and I'm loved for it. That's what Cassian gave me that night in the rain. Not just a relationship, but permission to be authentic, to stop being afraid, to believe that I deserve love, real love, the kind that shows up and stays even when things are hard. Sometimes I still can't believe he waited, that he stood there in the pouring rain for almost 2 hours because he wanted to see me. But that's who he is. Loyal, patient, committed. He's the kind of person who, when he cares about something, gives it everything. And I'm the person he chose to care about. We joke about it now, the rain and the ruined dinner and my terrible timing. It's become our story, the thing we'll tell people when they ask how we got together. But underneath the humor, I know we both remember the truth of that moment. The fear and hope and vulnerability. The risk we both took. The choice we both made to be honest. I keep a photo on my phone from that night. We took it later, back at my apartment. Both of us in dry clothes, but our hair still damp, sitting close together on the couch. We're smiling at the camera, but you can see it in our eyes. The relief, the joy, the beginning of something real. Sometimes when I'm having a hard day, when work is stressful or life feels overwhelming, I look at that photo and remember. Remember that good things are worth waiting for. That courage is rewarded. That love, real love, is possible. I think about the version of me from 6 months ago, sitting in that conference room, trying not to stare at the attractive new hire. If I could go back and tell him what was coming, I'm not sure I would. Because part of what made it so meaningful was not knowing, was taking the risk without any guarantee. But I would tell him not to be so afraid. Would tell him that the person walking into that conference room is going to change his life. That in a few months, he'll be standing in the rain, looking at someone who waited for him, and he'll finally understand what it means to be truly seen and loved. I would tell him that it's okay to be scared, but don't let fear make your decisions. Don't let it keep you from reaching for what you want. Don't let it convince you that you're not worthy of love or that taking risks isn't worth it. Because it is. God, it is so worth it. Every morning I wake up next to Cassian, and I'm grateful. Grateful that he was brave enough to wait. Grateful that I was brave enough to show up. Grateful for every moment that led us to each other. This is what I want you to take from my story. Not just the romance of it, though. That's nice. But the deeper truth. That being authentic, being vulnerable, being brave enough to say what you feel. That's how you find real connection. That's how you build a life that actually means something. Love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing, or saying the right things. It's about showing up. It's about waiting in the rain. It's about choosing someone every day, even when it's hard. It's about being honest about who you are and what you want and hoping that's enough. With Cassian, it was more than enough. It was everything. So here I am, 6 months later, sitting at my desk, thinking about rain and ruined reservations and the best mistake of my life. Thinking about how being late led me to exactly where I needed to be. Thinking about the man who waited, who's probably texting me right now to ask what I want for dinner, who makes me laugh and challenges me and loves me in ways I didn't know I needed. If you're listening to this and you're scared, I get it, but be scared and do it anyway. Tell that person how you feel. Take that risk. Be vulnerable. Because somewhere out there, someone might be waiting in the rain for you. And you'll never know unless you show up. I showed up. And it changed everything.